Alien High Regent was frozen in stasis for 900 years until he kissed her awake. The magnetic clamps of Jace's salvage vessel whined, then locked onto the battered hull of the drifting giant. Alone in his cockpit, Jace watched dust spiral in the beam of his searchlight. The craft before him was enormous. His scanner identified it as a Veyron colony ark, 95% intact, untouched for centuries. A ghost ship, and maybe his ticket out of debt and into a life of freedom. The hull loomed, matte silver and scorched in places, patched with ancient repairs. Jace's hands moved over the controls, guiding his vessel closer, docking with practiced precision. A soft shudder vibrated through his boots as the magnetic locks engaged. For a moment he simply stared, heart pounding in his throat. He was the first to find her, at least the first who had survived. He donned his suit, checked his oxygen, then grabbed his toolkit and holstered a compact blaster at his hip. The airlock cycled with a reluctant groan. He slipped inside through a maintenance hatch, the seal breaking with a hiss. Stale, metallic air filled his lungs, breathable, just barely, his helmet's filters catching the worst of it. Inside, emergency strips flickered, casting long, skeletal shadows down the alien corridors. Everything was painted in blue and violet, the colors of lost empires. Jace moved quickly, the soles of his boots echoing against the deck. He ignored the minor tech, bypassing crates stamped with Veyron sigils and flickering consoles. His instincts urged him forward, following thick, insulated conduits, main power lines, toward the heart of the ship. That was where the real treasures would be: command, engineering, or perhaps something more important. His scanner pinged, indicating energy signatures ahead, faint but steady. As he approached the core, the air grew warmer, the hum of dormant systems rising beneath the silence. The walls here glowed softly, violet light seeping through translucent panels, illuminating the intricate inlays beneath the surface. In the center of the chamber, a stasis pod waited, a jet-black capsule, its surface flawless, unlike the battered corridors outside. Jace circled it, his breath fogging in the chill. The controls on the pod were alien, looping Veyron glyphs scrolling in slow, hypnotic patterns. But here and there, the universal life support icons glowed a steady, pale green. Jace's pulse quickened, sweat prickling beneath his collar. He'd found something important, maybe the most important thing left on this ship. He knelt, unpacking his tools, running a probe over the pod's seams. The tech was intricate, layers of shielding and redundancy far beyond human designs. He tried to force the locks, but the mechanisms resisted, delicate, sensitive, almost alive beneath his hands. He gritted his teeth, angling a prying tool into a seam. It sparked, a sharp snap of energy. Jace recoiled, cursing, his hand flaring with pain. Blood welled from a thin cut on his palm, trickling down his wrist. As he jerked back, his elbow knocked against a low panel, almost invisible in the dim light. It flared crimson at his touch, lines of energy radiating from his blood. The whir of internal mechanisms sounded, then a gentle alarm chimed, echoing through the chamber. Jace's heart hammered. The pod shimmered, its opacity fading. Behind the glass, a woman lay still as death. Her skin was pale as moonlight, flawless and unblemished. Wild black hair, streaked with deep red, fanned across her shoulders. Her features were sharp, almost regal, cheekbones like blades, lips slightly parted. She was beautiful. She looked impossibly fragile. The life support icon blinked, shifting from green to red, then back again, as if the pod were fighting to maintain equilibrium. "Alert," the pod's AI intoned, voice smooth and androgynous, echoing around him. Genetic sample accepted, revival sequence started, occupant cell stability critical, immediate supplemental biological input required from donor. Jace pressed his bleeding hand to his shirt. "What kind?" he muttered, glancing at the pod's controls. A direct cellular exchange is necessary to stabilize the subject. Place your hands on the illuminated panels. Two handprints glowed, ghostly outlines pulsing beneath the glass. Jace hesitated, looking from the pod to his own injured hand, then set his jaw and pressed his palms to the panels. The surface warmed beneath his skin, a current of energy running up his arms as the pod scanned him. Tiny blue sparks traced the veins in his wrist. Analysis complete. Saliva and epithelial cell transfer recommended. Prepare for oral contact. Jace stared, stunned. You've got to be kidding me. The life support icon flickered, then flatlined. A piercing alarm wailed, desperate and insistent. Jace snatched a sterile mouthpiece from his kit, fitting it over his mouth and nose, hands shaking. He took a breath, leaned in as the pod seal hissed and broke. The glass slid away, cold air flooding out. The woman's lips parted, pale and inviting. Jace exhaled through the guard, pressing his mouth to hers. A strange tingling sensation ran through him, as if something were reaching back. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a chime sounded. The woman's eyelids fluttered, lashes dark against her cheeks. Slowly, her eyes opened. Crimson, intense, the color of fresh blood. Their gazes locked, a silent, electric moment passing between them. She stared at him, unblinking. And in that instant, Jace felt as if she saw through him, every memory, every secret laid bare. The pod's AI spoke again, more subdued. Subject stabilized. Name: Vela, High Regent of the Veyron. Vela sat on the edge of the medbay's diagnostic bed, a thermal wrap clutched around her shoulders, posture rigid. She refused to meet Jace's eyes, her own gaze fixed on the floor. Her breathing was steady, but her hands trembled ever so slightly. Your genome is unpredictable, the AI announced, but free of the corruption. It is the only compatible match in 800 years of scans. Continued survival requires regular biological exchanges. Vela's chin lifted, her tone icy. This human is the only choice? Jace slumped against the wall, wincing as he flexed his injured hand. Jace, you're welcome, by the way. She barely acknowledged him. Your actions were dictated by necessity, not kindness. Jace's jaw tightened. Well, I need to get off your floating crypt. My ship's running on fumes, and your systems are ancient. Vela straightened, eyes hard. This vessel is not a crypt. It is the last hope of my kind. Jace's voice softened, seeing the grief flicker, just for a heartbeat, across her face. Your people are gone. The AI told me. I'm sorry. She looked away, lips pressed tight. We are not gone. I am here. The untainted genome remains. The AI interrupted, calm and implacable. First scheduled transfer required in 1 hour to map donor's immune response. Escalate protocol. A panel slid open in the wall, revealing a sterile kit, transparent case, shimmering patches, unfamiliar instruments. Escalate? Jace echoed, wary, eyeing the kit. For genomic mapping, a dermal lymphatic transfer is necessary. Donor will expose chest. The Regent will apply transfer medium for 15 minutes. Vela's hands trembled as she accepted the shimmering patch. She regarded Jace with a mixture of calculation and discomfort. He hesitated, then pulled off his shirt, goosebumps prickling his skin in the cool air. He sat on the edge of the diagnostic bed, trying to appear unfazed, but his heart thudded in his chest. Vela approached, her movements precise but hesitant. She pressed the patch to his chest, her touch unexpectedly gentle. Warmth radiated out, pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. For 15 minutes, they remained like that. Two strangers, bound by reluctant necessity, their futures tangled by fate and ancient technology. 3 days later, the water recycler failed. Not with a bang, but a sudden, ominous silence that echoed through the quiet corridors of the Veyron Ark. Jace paused mid-stride, the hairs at the nape of his neck prickling. Across the compartment, a red warning pulsed on the console, urgent as a heartbeat. "Primary water system offline," the AI intoned, its voice calm despite the crisis. "Critical malfunction." Vela, standing nearby in the subdued light, frowned. "System was at 80% efficiency at revival. This is irregular." Jace knelt by an access panel, his hands already seeking the right tool from the battered kit beside him. "Not irregular," he grunted, prying the hatch open. "Sabotage. The main line's been sliced clean." Vela's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering beneath the steel of her composure. "By whom? We are alone." "Maybe not," Jace said, his voice low. He pushed himself further into the conduit, the metallic tang of recycled air thick in his lungs. "The AI said the corruption was dormant, not dead. Maybe waking you woke it up too." For a long moment, only the hum of emergency lights and the distant groan of the ship's old frame answered him. The threat felt real now, palpable, as if something unseen stalked them through the empty halls. The AI broke the silence. "Water reserves sufficient for 3 days at current consumption." That sharpened everything. Vela, who had been trained for command and battle, found herself useless against the silent, invisible enemy inside her own ship. She watched Jace work, his movements efficient but tense, sweat streaking his brow as he scavenged through storage lockers and stripped connectors from unused panels. He worked with the urgency of a man who had run out of luck too many times. Jace discovered an old nutrient line in the hydroponics bay, thick with green residue but still intact. He knelt among the tangled roots and dead vines, splicing the line, fingers nimble despite the pressure. Vela hovered nearby, her hands clenching and unclenching as she fought the urge to pace. When he rerouted the water through the ancient pipe and the recycler finally hummed back to life, relief swept through the compartment like a fresh breeze. Jace slumped back, wiping his forehead with a grimy sleeve. Vela regarded him with something new, cautious respect. "You are inventive," she admitted, the words hesitant but sincere. He flashed her a crooked grin, exhaustion and pride mingling in his eyes. "Comes with the territory. Glad I could be useful." A faint blush colored her pale cheeks, barely perceptible beneath the stark lighting. "That was unkind. I apologize." Before Jace could respond, the AI's voice interrupted, emotionless but insistent. "Protocol update. Cellular regeneration has plateaued. A more extensive transfer is required. Extended full-body dermal contact." Jace's hand froze halfway to his toolkit. "Say that again?" The AI repeated. "To facilitate protein exchange, donor and recipient must maintain skin contact for no less than 1 hour." Vela's composure slipped, uncertainty shadowing her expression. This was no longer a matter of patches and medical procedures. This was intimacy, vulnerability, exposure. She glanced at Jace, then quickly away. "It seems your usefulness is evolving, human," she murmured, her voice softer than before, a hint of fear and hope tangled in the words. Jace didn't have a retort. He just stared at the deck, feeling the weight of the ship's silence press in on them both. The next morning, as artificial dawn flickered through the windows, the AI guided them to the archives 2 decks below. They walked together through corridors that still carried the scars of disaster, burned-out lighting, twisted panels, the scent of old metal and dust. Vela's gait was stronger now, her steps surer, though she still bore a regal stiffness, as if every muscle remembered centuries of command. Their path was lit only by the throb of emergency strips, casting their shadows long and uncertain on the walls. Jace kept his wrench in one hand, the other hovering near his blaster. Vela carried a conduit she'd wrenched from a broken hatch, wielding it like a staff. Their awkward alliance was evolving, shaped by necessity and the forced, daily intimacy of the transfers. As they passed beneath a corroded vent, the attack came without warning. Drones, 3 of them, dropped from the ceiling in a flurry of black limbs and whirring servos. Their plasma cutters hissed to life, casting blue fire across the corridor. "Get down!" Jace shouted, shoving Vela behind him. He swung his wrench in a wide arc, catching one drone and sending it skidding across the deck. Sparks exploded in a shower of light. Vela did not cower. She lunged forward, her movements sharp and practiced, the conduit singing through the air. She knocked another drone aside, then spun, smashing its sensor array. Jace tackled the third, pinning it to the ground as its cutter sliced a molten scar in the deck beside his face. With a grunt, he ripped out its power cell and hurled it down the corridor. The air was thick with the acrid stench of burnt circuitry. Jace and Vela stood, breathless, surrounded by the ruined husks of their attackers. Jace flexed his bruised hand, grinning despite himself. "Your reflexes are sharp." Vela's eyes glittered. "I was trained, but it has been a long time." They pressed on, warier than before. In the archives, a vast, circular chamber lined with crystalline data pillars, they hunted for the core stabilizer the AI insisted was vital to the cure. As Vela worked the controls, Jace kept watch, nerves still jangling from the drone attack. Screens flickered to life, displaying logs from the Veyron's last voyage. Voices, long dead, echoed through the chamber. Vela's hands stilled as she recognized one. Her father, the Regent, his voice grave and weary. "My daughter," the recording began. "If you are hearing this, then the plan has failed. The corruption is not a disease. It is the result of an engineered evolution, an attempt to guide our people to greatness. But we miscalculated. It spread, consumed, altered everything it touched. Only your genome remains unaltered. You are our hope. The corruption will seek you, not to destroy, but to improve." Jace watched Vela's face as the truth settled. Her proud bearing crumbled, lips parting in shock. She stared at the screen as if it might vanish, her world dissolving beneath her feet. "I am not a survivor," she whispered, voice ragged. "I am a remnant, the product of a failed legacy." Jace reached out, hesitating just long enough for her to notice before his hand settled, gentle, on her shoulder. He said nothing, because words would never suffice. Not now, not for this. For a long moment, they stood in the blue glow of forgotten history, side by side, facing the weight of what was left. The revelation shattered Vela's sense of self. In the days that followed, she became a ghost, drifting through the corridors of her own ship, the required transfers between her and Jace, growing cold and mechanical. Where before there had been awkward warmth, shared glances, brief touches, hesitant conversation, now there was only silence. She kept her eyes down, her voice clipped and formal, her posture so rigid she seemed carved from stone. She withdrew further with each passing cycle, vanishing for hours at a time into the ship's observatory. There, surrounded by a dome of glass and silent stars, she gazed out at the universe, her empire reduced to pinpricks of distant light. Vela, High Regent of the Veyron, sat in a throne of emptiness, ruling over nothing but memory and regret. Jace noticed the change, though she tried to hide it. Their transfers happened in the medbay, wordless and perfunctory. Sometimes, when he brushed her hand, she flinched as if burned. He watched her from a distance, helpless, the distance between them growing with every unspoken word. But the ship was not empty. The corruption sensed her despair, her wounds, her doubts, and attacked. It began as a whisper in the dark, a chill along the spine, a flicker of movement at the edge of her vision. Then, one night, she found herself drawn to the arboretum, unable to sleep. The glass walls were rimed with frost, the hydroponic beds overgrown with shadows. She heard laughter, the high, sweet sound of Veyron children. She turned, and there they were, running among the silvered leaves. She saw guards in polished armor, saluting as she passed. She saw her father, standing proud and sorrowful at the far end of the path. Their eyes glowed faintly red, their faces blurred around the edges, but her heart ached with longing. Her father's image approached, his voice a venomous hiss. "You carry the flaw, Vela. You must be made whole. You must accept what you are." She shook her head, trembling. "No, I am not." "You are the last mistake, the last failure." She tried to run, but the children crowded around her, hands reaching, tugging at her robes. Their mouths moved, whispering blame, feeding on her guilt. She crumpled to her knees, covering her ears. "Stop! Please, stop!" Jace found her there, lost in the storm of phantoms. He saw her hunched on the floor, surrounded by the illusionary children, the spectral guards, the looming shadow of her father. Their voices filled the air, cold and cruel, echoing with accusation. He stepped through them, his presence scattering the images. "It's not real, Vela," he said, voice firm. "It's the corruption, feeding on your pain." She turned to him, eyes wild and wet. "You cannot understand," she whispered. "The shame." He knelt in front of her, his face open, raw. "I know what it's like to run from your past, to feel broken, to believe you're beyond saving." She closed her eyes, letting the tears fall. "I am alone," she choked. "I have always been alone." He reached for her hands, his touch grounding her, warm, solid, undeniable. "I'm here. I'm real." She stared at him through her tears, searching his face for any hint of judgment. She found only kindness, only the stubborn spark of hope he always seemed to carry. The illusions flickered, then faded, dissolving into motes of light. The arboretum fell silent, but for her quiet sobbing. Vela collapsed against him, her body racked with centuries of grief. She clung to him as if he were the only anchor in a storm-tossed sea. Jace held her, steady as stone, letting her tears soak his shirt. He murmured soft, wordless reassurances, his hand stroking her hair. For the first time, she wasn't a regent, and he wasn't a tool. They were simply two souls, lost and found in the dark. The ship did not grant them peace. As if enraged by their fragile connection, the corruption struck back, this time with brute force. Alarms blared, crimson light strobing through the corridors. The temperature plummeted, systems failed one by one. In the med bay, consoles sparked and died as the life support shut down with a final hollow sigh. Vela stumbled, clutching her chest as the connection between them was wrenched away. Her vitals crashed, the monitor shrieking in protest. "It is starving me," she gasped, voice thin as paper. "Severing our link." Jace lunged for the nearest console, fingers flying over the controls. He cursed as error messages flashed across every screen. The corruption had locked them out, rerouting power, sabotaging their only chance at survival. Rerouting manually would take too long. He looked at Vela, her skin ashen, her breathing shallow. "AI? Options?" he demanded. The AI's reply was flat, stripped of its usual calm. "Without synthesis, her body cannot process transfers. 4 hours remain before irreversible cellular collapse." He looked into Vela's eyes, saw terror and a flicker of hope mingled together. His resolve hardened. "There's another way. Direct. No machines." Her hand shot out, weak but insistent. "No, Jace, the risk," she protested. But he was already tearing open a manual transfusion kit, hands steady as he snapped the sterile seals. "Maybe you need a flood, not a trickle." Vela struggled to sit up, her voice little more than a rasp. "You could be exposed to my blood. The dormant corruption." Jace met her gaze, his own eyes fierce. "I've been living on borrowed time," he said, sterilizing the needle. "This is worth the risk." He offered her his life, not just his blood. His hands never wavered as he prepped the lines, checking for leaks, drawing his sleeve back. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Vela felt hope flicker inside her chest. Tiny, stubborn, refusing to be extinguished. As Jace fitted the needle, his pulse steady beneath her trembling fingers, she clung to that hope, and to him. Jace sat beside her on the edge of the med bay cot, the transfusion kit linking their arms, thin tubes running from his vein to hers, their blood mingling in a crimson spiral. Her hand was cool in his, her skin almost luminous in the sterile light. The monitors pulsed with their twin heartbeats, then blurred as the world seemed to slide sideways. As their blood mixed, so did their minds. The psychic link snapped open between them, not gentle or tentative, but overwhelming, tidal. For a moment, Jace thought he was drowning. Memories, senses, and feelings collided, burning away barriers of language, shame, and fear. He tumbled through her recollections, a world of spires and silver rivers, children laughing in gravity gardens, the clangor of war on foreign soil, the ache of command, and the endless weight of loneliness. He felt her pride, her heartbreak, her terror as her people fell one by one. He saw her father's eyes, kind and distant. The loneliness was a living thing, hollowing her out for centuries. In turn, she was swept into his life. The flicker of neon on rain-slicked salvage docks, the grit of hunger, the desperate bargains, the grief of loss, the steady drumbeat of survival. She felt the ache in his hands, the relentless hope he carried like a shield, the stubborn way he refused to give up even when everything seemed lost. Her blood was ancient, vibrant with memories and possibilities. It filled him, not as a curse, but as a song, awakening something dormant. For a heartbeat, his senses expanded. He could feel the ship's slow rotation, the press of distant stars, the whisper of Vela's thoughts. He glimpsed himself through her eyes, resourceful, dogged, unexpectedly brave. She, in turn, felt the depth of his resilience, his hope. His faith in her, foolish, stubborn, and genuine, shocked her. She had never known such devotion from anyone, let alone a stranger. Gratitude and awe shimmered between them, warm and electric. Their barriers melted. For the first time since her awakening, Vela felt whole, her shame burned away by the light of his unwavering spirit. Her color returned, a soft flush spreading across her cheeks. Her breath steadied, deep and even. The monitors flickered green. Jace slumped, dizzy, but his eyes never left hers. His free hand found hers, their fingers entwining. Her touch was no longer clinical or distant. It was intimate, claiming, a promise of something new. "Jace," she whispered, her voice unsteady but full of meaning. His name on her lips was both a vow and a benediction. He managed a crooked smile. "You're back." But the ship shuddered violently beneath them, interrupting the fragile moment. Bulkheads slammed shut, the lights flickered, and the AI's voice, usually so measured, now crackled with static. "Reactor unstable, meltdown in 21 minutes. Jace's head snapped up. "It's going to blow!" He pulled the transfusion needle free and helped Vela to her feet. Already she was stronger, radiant, more alive than he had ever seen her. "The transfusion cured me," she breathed, testing her limbs. "It finished the process." As she spoke, the medbay fabricator chimed, producing a small vial of glowing fluid, liquid light contained in glass. She plucked it from the tray, her eyes widening in understanding. "It's for the ship now." Jace nodded. "If we inject it into the main reservoir, it might save the vessel." "Or kill us," she replied, but she was already moving, determination blazing in her crimson eyes. Jace grinned, adrenaline banishing his lingering dizziness. "Let's not wait to find out." They ran. The corridors bucked and twisted beneath their feet, gravity failing in sudden, sickening lurches. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes. Emergency klaxons warred with the AI's fractured warnings. Drones, twisted by the corruption, dropped from ceiling panels, spidery limbs snatching at them with plasma cutters. Jace swung his wrench, taking a drone's head clean off, sparks showering across the deck. Vela moved like a shadow, her body a blur of motion. She ducked a swipe, drove her elbow into a drone's sensor core, and sent it crashing into a wall. Their bond had become a beacon, each step and breath in sync, each glance a silent message. A bulkhead dropped behind them, cutting off their retreat. Jace grabbed Vela's hand, hauling her over a tangle of cables. The ship howled, its agony echoing through the deck plates. In the chaos, Jace found himself laughing, a ragged, wild sound. Vela squeezed his hand, the ghost of a smile flickering on her lips. They reached the engine room at last. The core chamber was sealed, thick glass shot through with veins of black corruption. The intake port glowed behind a security screen. Vela stepped forward, lifting the vial. "Command-level biosignature required," she said, pressing her palm to the scanner. The panel glowed red, then dead. Nothing. Jace's heart dropped. "The corruption's blocking you." Vela's jaw tightened. "The manual override needs a surge of biological input, a living signature." She looked at him, hope and fear warring in her face. He crossed the distance, cupping her face in both hands. The alarms faded away. The world shrank to just the two of them, suspended in the emerald gloom. He searched her eyes, crimson and deep, alight with something he could not name. "Jace," she started, her voice shaking. He silenced her with a kiss. It was fierce, desperate, full of hope and defiance, everything they had become. The bond between them flared, flooding the scanner with a pulse of life, a signal stronger than any code or command. The panel flashed green. The lock hissed open. Vela didn't hesitate. She smashed the vial into the intake port, shards scattering as liquid light coursed into the reservoir. "Move!" she shouted. They sprinted as iridescent energy rippled through the conduits, chasing away the shadows. Behind them, the corruption's psychic scream echoed through the hull, a sound of rage and defeat, fading into silence. The alarms cut out. The vessel went still, bathed in the gentle emerald glow of restored systems. Jace and Vela stood together in the quiet, hearts pounding, the warmth of their bond still pulsing between them, alive, unbroken, and for the first time, truly free. They stood in the corridor, hands still clasped, the world around them transformed. The corruption was gone. No more psychic whispers, no more cold dread slithering through the ship's veins. Instead, there was only silence, luminous and deep, broken by the hum of living systems and the pulse of their own hearts. They faced each other in the emerald afterglow, breathless, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace. "AI?" Vela asked, her voice cautious, uncertain if hope could finally be trusted. "Online, Regent," the AI replied, its tone restored to calm assurance. "The cure has been disseminated. The Varen corruption has been neutralized. The vessel is restored." For a moment, neither moved. Relief swept through them, vast as the stars outside. Jace felt his knees tremble, a laugh escaping him, part disbelief, part exhausted joy. Vela's cheeks glowed with health, her eyes bright and unclouded, her presence radiant and strong. He studied her, the new light in her face, the color blooming in her skin. "The cure. It's stable in my blood now, isn't it? You don't need me anymore." She let go of his hand, her fingers trailing down his palm before falling away. "No, I am whole, for the first time." Her voice was soft, solemn. She looked away, then back, her gaze steady and searching. "Thank you, Jace." He nodded, swallowing the ache that rose in his throat. The intimacy of their ordeal hung between them, but now the distance felt vast. She, the last of a lost people, he, a wanderer with nowhere left to run. The silence pressed in, heavy and uncertain. "So, what now, Regent?" he asked, forcing a crooked smile, trying to lighten the moment. She shook her head, her expression caught between wonder and fear. "I do not know," she admitted honestly, the truth of it ringing out. "Let us see what the stars look like when we are not running." They made their way to the bridge, footsteps echoing in the newly restored corridors. The doors slid open, revealing a view that took their breath away. The nebula stretched before them, a tapestry of violet and gold, swirling clouds luminous against the black. The ship floated silently, its hull mended, systems humming in perfect synchrony. The controls blinked green and gold, awaiting their command. Jace drifted to the navigation console, fingertips tracing the edges of the star charts projected in midair. There were hundreds of courses plotted, spirals leading to unknown worlds, paths across the arms of the galaxy. He could go anywhere now, be anyone. But the thought, once intoxicating, felt oddly hollow. Vela stood at the viewport, her silhouette regal and solitary, the expanse of space reflected in her eyes. The weight of centuries pressed on her shoulders, but there was something new in her posture, an openness, a question. "This ship can seed a new world," she said quietly. "We have archives, the machines, the knowledge, but there is no one left to begin." Her voice cracked just slightly, the pain of loss raw and unguarded. Jace left the charts behind, moving to stand beside her. He studied the whirls of gas and distant suns, then turned to her, his voice gentle. "Maybe it's not about starting over. Maybe it's about building something new." She looked at him, her crimson eyes shining in the starlight, searching his face for the cynicism she expected, but finding only sincerity. "My people sought perfection and made a monster," she whispered. "Your chaos was the cure. My father wanted gods and failed. Gods. You are just a man, and you saved me. There is wisdom in that." He laughed, self-conscious. "I never aimed to be wise. Mostly, I just wanted to survive." Their connection lingered, a psychic and emotional hum in the air between them, a thread of understanding woven by blood and memory. He reached for her hand, but paused, uncertain. She closed the gap herself, fingers curling around his. "I've never found anything more precious than you," Jace said, the words honest and unpolished, spoken as if he was discovering the truth of them as he spoke. A tear slipped down Vela's cheek, tracing a path of silver against her pale skin. She shuddered, looking away, shame and longing at war in her face. "I have nothing left," she whispered. He turned her gently, brushing the tear away with his thumb. "You're wrong," he said, voice rough with feeling. "You have a future, and a ship the size of a city. I'm good with engines. Seems fair." She blinked, and then smiled. A real smile, radiant and unguarded, lighting up her whole face. "A fair bargain," she murmured, her voice thick with gratitude and hope. He drew her into his arms, her head resting against his shoulder, the closeness no longer awkward but easy, inevitable. The bridge, once a cold command center, felt suddenly warm and alive. Together, they gazed out at the endless stars. For the first time, the universe was not an empty graveyard or a place to hide. It was a frontier, unclaimed, unwritten, waiting for them, waiting. They stood there, side by side, two survivors who had rebuilt something neither had dared to imagine. No longer relics, but partners, at the dawn of something wholly new. Years passed. The Veyron ship drifted in orbit above Nerith, its hull no longer haunted by silence or memory, but alive with purpose. What had once been a tomb was now a beacon, its signal pulsing out into the black to mark the birth of something new. Below, the world of Nerith unfurled in rich swaths of green, a living testament to what two unlikely souls had dared to imagine. Vela became the architect of this new beginning. Each dawn found her at the heart of the ship, decoding layers of ancient Varen code, her slender fingers dancing across luminous consoles. She guided the AI, her voice gentle but commanding, orchestrating the terraforming that coaxed rivers to flow and forests to rise where there had once been barren stone. Her pale skin, once cold with isolation, now glowed with health and hope. Her crimson eyes, once sharp with sorrow, softened as she watched life bloom. Jace was her counterpart in every way. He took to the land, sleeves rolled up and boots caked in the fertile mud of a world still learning to breathe. He adapted Varen technology to human hands, built domes to shelter the first crops, and designed defenses to ward off the unknown. His hands bore the marks of labor, old scars, new calluses, stains that no solvent could scrub away. The work was endless, but he thrived in it, and every evening, no matter how tired, he would find his way back to Vela. They spent those evenings on the bridge, where the stars poured through the windows and Nerith spun below them. They would stand side by side, hands entwined, wordless as they watched the clouds shift and the lights of the settlement flicker on the darkening planet. Their bond, once forced by necessity and fear, had grown into something deep and unspoken. They shared dreams, frustrations, and joys without needing words. Their laughter filled the corridors, gentle and bright, a harmony with the hum of the resurrected ship. In the laboratory, Vela studied the genome that had saved her. She still carried the original Veyron strain, untainted and strong. Jace's human DNA, chaotic and resilient, had done more than cure her. It had created a new lineage. Together, they debated how to repopulate their world. There would be no forced perfection this time, no eugenics or grand designs, only freedom, only choice, only the hope that a future shaped by love and imperfection would be stronger than any engineered utopia. Their daughter, Mira, was the first true child of Nerith. She had Jace's brown eyes and Vela's luminous skin, her laughter ringing with both human mischief and Varen clarity. Mira would run through the hydroponic gardens, collecting data on every new blossom, her curiosity insatiable. Their son Corin followed close behind, crimson-eyed and wild-haired, his mind always darting ahead to the next adventure, the next mystery to solve. He built mechanical birds and watched them fly, chasing his mother's legacy and his father's stubborn spirit. The ship became a living school. Its once lonely corridors echoed with footsteps and laughter. The AI, once only a voice, became a patient teacher, guiding the children, answering their endless questions, recounting the history of both the Varen and human worlds. In the evenings, Vela told them stories of her people's lost home, of star empires and distant wars, while Jace showed them how to fix engines and coax stubborn machines to life. Jace's hair grew streaked with gray, the years etched in the lines around his eyes, and the easy strength of his embrace. He still spent his days tinkering with the ship's engines, refining systems, inventing new tools and toys for Mira and Corin. He was never idle. He claimed he could not rest while there was still work to do. Vela, softened by motherhood, grew into her role as the matriarch of this new world. She guided their family with quiet wisdom, her fierce pride tempered by the gentle patience she had learned from Jace. Their bond was the heart of it all, a silent current running through every decision, every hope, every compromise. When storms battered the settlement domes or the AI puzzled over a problem, it was Vela and Jace who found a way through together. When their children quarreled or the future seemed uncertain, it was their love that steadied the ship and the world below. One evening, as the sun set over Nerith's emerald forests, Jace found Vela on the observation deck. She stood with her back to him, watching Mira and Corin play in the grass below, their shouts echoing through the open hatch. The air was cool, filled with the scent of alien flowers and the promise of rain. He stepped behind her, wrapping his arm around her waist, pulling her close. She leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she whispered, voice trembling with wonder. He followed her gaze, his heart full. More than I ever hoped for, he replied softly. Remember that quiet outpost I wanted to buy? The one I talked about, back when all I had was a salvage ship and a few credits to my name? She laughed, the sound musical. This is better, don't you think, my salvager? He pressed a kiss to her temple, his own laughter warm and easy. Much better, my regent. They stood together in the fading light, watching their children race across the fields. Above them, the Varen ship glowed softly, a cradle suspended between worlds, carrying the seeds of a new civilization. It was a living symbol of what they had built and what they would build together. Their love, forged in desperation and tempered by time, had become the foundation of a future neither could have imagined. Beneath the endless stars, with a new world blooming at their feet, Jace and Vela knew their journey was just beginning, a story with no ending, written each day in the laughter of their children and the promise of a world reborn. That's the end of the story. You can leave us a tip or become a channel member. This greatly helps our team improve the quality of our videos. You can send a tip using the Super Thanks button right below the video. We truly appreciate each and every one of you who has subscribed and supported us. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.